Karen Howard, welcome to Hunter Business Insider. Thank you for your time, and to Enviro Pacific for their boardroom. We're nomads, we drift around, so we'll go anywhere. There's a spare room.
Yes. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here.
It's a pleasure. We would have used the boardroom at Nine Ways, but that's often filled with your clients. So
it's booked up today.
Yes. So we don't want to get in the road of being chased. Let's start. Well, the introduction should not be done without saying past president of Hunter Business Chamber. Currently board member of significant boards, and we'll talk about a few of those because there's some new ones there for the region as well. And your baby, 13 years old this year, Nine Ways Business Centre. Can we start there?
Love to.
Tell me about Nine Ways. It's gone ups and downs. What have you found?
We've had the same peaks and troughs over 13 years as any business experiences. Some of them brought on by external forces and some of them brought on by ourselves and myself in my naivety and enthusiasm, often unbridled to take on diverse business activities, and some of them haven't worked out over the years, but I'm enormously proud of 13 years in business. And we started on International Women's Day. I'd like to say that it was planned, but it was actually a fortuitous accident.
Yes, well done.
But looking back, it's been a very special journey, and I've had a lot of people on board with me through that journey, both clients and employees and mentors and advisors.
You've got a great team. Whenever I ring, they're fantastic to talk to, so which is the start. Tell me about the client. Well, no, tell me about the business itself. You talked about the ups. What were some of those?
Some of the ups have been relocating and expanding 3 times during that period. So by the 3rd time, it pretty much comes down to a checklist of, okay, we've spoken to Telstra, we've spoken to EA, we're going into this site. The fit outs are all pretty standard now. The requirements of my clients have changed significantly over that period of time.
Let's talk about some of that. How have they changed?
The first site was set up with network cabling for everything, from printers to faxes to everything. Now there is very little need from my clients for that sort of support. They work extremely autonomously in their offices, so long as we provide tea and coffee, a smiling face on the front desk, great access to the boardroom, and of course free car parking. I have a pretty happy group of
Yes.
group of tenants, and a model that's worked very well for me with my employees has been, we don't have any permanent employees aside from myself. We job share on the front desk, so I don't have any burnt out, stressed receptionist. They have a very flexible working environment, and the girls essentially work out between themselves who's doing which days, and so long as someone's there between 8:30 and 5, I'm happy.
I'm still having trouble after hearing you started work, first job, a secretary in a Maitland plumbing company. Tell me why you left there.
Well, that plumbing company were before their time, and they took on a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young lady out of Maitland Girls High School for a 12-month period every year. It was an informal type of traineeship.
Right.
And you knew that you were working there for 12 months, and at the end of the 12 months it was, thank you very much, here's your letter, off you go into the big wide world.
That's cool. Are they still doing that?
No.
All right.
No.
Did they stop as soon as you left? Or no, I should know.
No, I think there was some others after me.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go back to 13 years. The valley's changed. The business has changed.
The Hunter's changed a lot in that time. I started my business the year that BHP closed, and there was a formation of a strategy that sat behind that, which was to be in a position to be able to help some of the people that were leaving BHP who might have wanted to set up a business and not quite sure how to do it. So I provided an incubator type.
Yeah, I think that's a bit smarter than Women's
Centre.
Day, frankly. Choosing the year that BHP closes, that's a big decision too.
Well, it worked okay. It worked okay for me.
Newcastle's working okay too, I think, isn't it? it's for me, it's a case study on how to manage the closure of what was it, 10, 20,000, 20,000 jobs. It's So if we look at what's got to change from here going forward, what do you think the Hunter's got to do business-wise?
We've been really fortunate in the Hunter. I hesitate to use the words GFC proof, but essentially we've close to sailed through, and obviously that's been on the back of the resources boom. I think one of my frustrations with us is we talk a lot to ourselves about what we do. We don't tend to capture the audience much south of the Hawkesbury. That drives me nuts. We have a plethora of what I lovingly refer to as the H groups throughout the whole Hunter region, and they're organisations full of very passionate, very committed people to their causes, expending enormous amounts of energy and sometimes money on collectively doing what I think they could all do collaboratively very well, which is support the economic growth of our region.
I'm probably going to go into the rant a little bit here now, but in the relatively newly arrived RDA, 2.5 years old, it's that they have the opportunity to form that one voice. Are they? Is it to come from the top down, or should it be happening from the bottom up?
I think it's difficult to pinpoint which is going to be the best way to bring people together and have the Hunter speaking with one voice. RDA, in my view, would be the organisation to do it, but that's just my personal view. It takes a lot of time to corral all of these people together that represent all of our wonderful lobby groups and advocacy groups throughout the Hunter, but it would make sense to me that it is undertaken by RDA.
Let's talk about the next 2 years. We've got these people talking together and we're being more effective. What else has to change, do you think, when it comes to business in the Hunter?
I think we're lacking some real strong leadership, and I don't just say that from business. Business people are flat out getting on with running their businesses, employing people and contributing to the economic growth of our magnificent region. It's a big call for any business person to take on extra roles in organisations, and I certainly have a long history of people behind me that did that with the Hunter Business Chamber, and I did my 2 years as well. I think politically I'd like to see some more strength, some more leadership, some more decision making on issues that are really important to us. I read the Herald regularly, the same as everyone else, and I am staggered and disappointed to hear that we're still having the same argument over transport in this great city, and I sit along with everybody else at the Stewart Avenue railway gates several times a day sometimes.
What's the core problem there?
Whatever the solution is,
no one wants to make it though, do they?
That's the frustrating fact. There are lots and lots of arguments for all sorts of models of transport throughout our city, and I believe that we should have a transport system, but we have a vacuum of decision making in somebody making that happen. And I'm as aware as anybody else is of the political drivers and the emotional community drivers that sit behind that, but we are past the tipping point of having something better.
Everyone wants a strong, a system that works. It can't be rocket science. It will take a brave person and a person with leadership to say this is what's going to happen.
I think that's exactly what we need, and there are lots of pieces to that puzzle that sit behind the picture of transport, public transport in any large regional city, but we are too important to not have a decision on this soon.
Nathan should just buy, Mr. Tinkler, you can call him Mr. Tinkler, Nathan should just buy the 10 square kilometres and just sort us out. There's an option.
That's a great idea. Let's get him on the phone.
We might move along before that. We would only do it if he had a balanced board, and by balanced we're talking a little earlier about skills and culture, personality types and vested interest in a board to give it a vibrant, dynamic feel. And we need some women on those. You've just got the Medicare board, I think, is now.
The Hunter Urban Medicare Local is a new organisation in the sense that we are involved heavily in the federal government's primary healthcare reform, which is essentially primary healthcare is everything that happens outside of a state hospital. But we're not a new organisation in the sense that we don't have history. We've got a couple of decades worth of very important history with the Hunter Urban Division of General Practice, which then morphed into GP Access, most well known by most of the community for our phenomenal after-hours clinics, which are operated through 5 hospitals in the Hunter region. And over the past 10 years have seen something like 1 million patients. So that's 1 million people that have been kept out of emergency departments.
So it is an amazing story. The board you've got now, what are its KPIs?
Well, the KPIs are set by the board for management, but the composition of the board is really interesting. We've now diversified our board outside of general practice. I still have 5 GPs on my board who make very sophisticated contributions to the board on behalf of their industry, but also they bring a very particular set of skills and expertise to the board. We have several non-GP board members who have corporate and allied health and Indigenous health experience, all of which add into the melting pot of a very sophisticated, hard-working board supported by a fantastic management team.
And I'm a fan of Ethos Health and
Yes.
Dr. Trent. It's fantastic, and about time we had that breadth of offer there too, I think. So that's a cool thing. We give everyone the opportunity to have. Well, no, we shouldn't move on. We were going to start with your rant, but we won't. We'll start with life balance. Young lady, you have a few things going on in your life.
A little bit. A little bit.
School runs, pickups, soccer boots being tied up by gaffer tape. We found out this morning.
Yeah.
Is there balance, or is that a falsity?
Look, I'd love to sit here with a very unique, sophisticated story about a working mum and how it all comes together.
Here's some news. You'd be our first.
The fact is, I just don't think I don't think that there's a formula. I think we're all individual as parents or business people or partners or whatever it is, and you just do what you need to do to make it work. Everyone's out of their house in the morning with breakfast, packed lunch, hopefully cleanish clothes on, and outsource where you have to.
Yeah, and that's the parents.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Let alone the kids.
Indeed. All right, rant time. So
Well, I kind of started my rant,
did.
I think. I might have come in a bit early. That's my passion taking over for the Hunter. But I just believe we can do better, and we should always be striving to do better. We are the lucky region in this country, and all of us that have grown up here and worked here and had the opportunity to do crazy things like open a business and have it work 13 years later, and whatever we've contributed to, whether it be our local sporting group, our business group, anything whatsoever, there is the opportunity to do it here in the Hunter, and we are incredibly fortunate to have that opportunity.
To add to your words, and from what you said earlier, we get a little myopic in our own area though, don't we? You've got 22 organisations that can contribute to growth, and they're all fixed in their own area. If we could break down those, that would help too.
I think if we could find a mechanism to help them to collaborate in some way, we'd save a lot of time, we'd save a lot of energy, but most importantly, we'd crystallise our message when we're talking outside of our own region. And that's important in terms of being heard on the state and the national and the international stage.
When we talk about collaboration, you know, we like, as Business Insider, the cluster mentality where you get interested people together and say, work this out. It's the old lock the doors and don't let anyone go home until you resolve. The transport issue, for instance. But clustering, can that work in the Hunter to help break down some of those fixed groups?
If we're talking about achieving economies of scale and corralling views together and coming up with a common view and a common voice, clustering is the sensible way of doing that. It just makes perfect sense to bring people together in that sort of realm. And it happens a lot with industry. You see various clusters form in industrial parks and so on, and they're usually related to specific industry types. You see a lot of IT industry clusters forming collaborative little groups, and they work together. And we have, over the years at the Business Centre, had clusters of an IT person, a website person, a graphic designer, all working out of essentially the same space and being very collaborative in their approach to attracting clients and then servicing those clients. So I guess if you look at it from a pure commercial perspective, it has worked, and there would be no reason why it couldn't work here. It's just that someone needs to lead that process.
And transport comes back, and I quote Todd Williams, who has been acting as a supporter or a central point for the fast rail system. And he quotes, to quote him, he said, you know, when we were talking in Newcastle, the first question was, well, where's the railway station going? And he said, we've kind of got past that, and said, well, you can't really decide on that until you work out whether you actually want a very fast train between here and Canberra or here in Melbourne or wherever and going to Brisbane. So to preempt it by the detail is often the issue, and I quite liked what Todd was getting at there. Is that the problem with the transport issue in the Hunter? Do you think that we're caught up with the detail and we're not looking at the fact that the whole valley could benefit from this?
I think a couple of points there. When you're really passionate about something, it's very hard to see out the sides of the tunnel. All you're looking at is the end of the tunnel, and what you're passionate about is not what everybody else is passionate about. And that's just what makes us all fantastic individuals, and we all have important views on things. I think what we've done with our transport options is we've gotten very bogged down in the detail. And if you look at some of the really successful entrepreneurs around the world, they don't worry about how their product is going to be made, sold, or anything else. They just have a vision, they have a thought, they actually think about what they might want to do, and they worry about the rest later.
Indeed.
And I think we could do with a little bit of that.
Hunter, Business Insider may take that on as our quest, the collaboration.
I challenge you. There you go.
I don't know why I said that. Karen Howard, thanks for your time.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.